As we are all very well aware, the game lineup on Nintendo Switch is incredibly backloaded in 2019. And although there were some great games in the first half of the year, your wallet will be especially hurting in the back half, and for some reason, that seems to be the case especially around the month of September. With rumors of a Nintendo Direct any day, there's a solid chance that this list could grow even further for the holiday season. But for now, let's look at what all games will be coming out in the month of September so that you can figure out what to buy now, wait for a sale, or maybe ask for good old Saint Nick. How tight will your wallet be? Let's talk about it. The idea of this video is to serve as a buyer's guide of sorts for the September Switch games, but for some of the details, this may be more specific to the US. So as a quick tip before we start, if you are in the US, for some reason, almost all Switch games are by default cheaper at Walmart. No clue why, but their $60 games are $50 in store, and a bunch of others are cheaper as well. So check that out if you want to buy the games physically and care to save a few bucks. The first game, and this one is really an honorary mention, is Astral Chain. I say it's an honorary mention because it technically comes out in August, but the game is reviewing incredibly well and looks phenomenal. AJ has a video covering everything you need to know about it, so watch that to learn some more that you may not have known already. The game is $60 and goes on sale on August 30th. With Platinum's pedigree, this is one worth picking up day one if at all possible. But next will actually be in the month of September, and the first game of note is not just one game, but three. Spyro Reignited Trilogy confused everyone last year when it launched on other platforms and leaked for Switch and PC, but now it's actually coming. These games are very carefully and lovingly crafted remakes of the original PlayStation trilogy and are great, lighthearted fun. The character is iconic and the platforming is quite a bit easier than it used to be since you have a full range of motion and camera control. Spyro Reignited Trilogy comes to the Switch on September 3rd for just $40. However, considering how often an early Crashed Insane trilogy has gone on sale, you can expect this to likely come down to around $32 or so by Black Friday or the end of the year. So unless you want to play it immediately, you can likely save some money if you just wait around a few months and keep your eyes peeled. That same day, Torchlight 2 comes to Switch and was just recently announced in the Indie World presentation. AJ talked about this game's development in last week's video, but the idea is a multiplayer Diablo Lite that some even preferred over Diablo 3 at its launch. But nevertheless, the game is an isometric dungeon crawler with heavy emphasis on multiplayer. I'm sure it's great single player, but I think it's more worth an immediate pickup if you're playing with friends. Considering Hob, another great game by the same developer, and was ported by Panic Button, went on sale fairly quickly, I'd guess this one will do the same. But regardless, the price tag isn't that hard to swallow at just $20. On Friday, September 6th, there are two games of note releasing, and of completely different styles. NBA 2K20, which is exactly what you'd expect and will be $60 at launch, and Creature in the Well, an indie game that has been highlighted by Nintendo a couple of times. The 2K NBA games are actually very well ported, so if you want a basketball game and don't mind avoiding the microtransaction side of the title, it's a good choice. But it'll also go on sale probably not in too long, so you can keep playing 2K19 until then if you want. Creature in the Well, on the other hand, is an indie game that's a single-player dungeon crawler and roguelite with pinball mechanics. First impressions seem to be that it's unique but quite fun. It's only going to be $15 and could stand to be a good impulse buy to slot between your other purchases. The second full week of September, we see two notable games release. The first of these is the closest thing I've seen to a 2D Dark Souls yet. Blasphemous is a dark, gothic 2D Souls-like with seemingly deep lore and combat. The game launches on September 10th for $25, and unless reviews come out and are bad, you already know whether this game is for you or not. Later that week, however, Friday the 13th gives us Nintendo-published game Daemon X Machina. As you surely know, this one is an interesting case. It felt extremely overlooked for a long time after announcement, and then finally received a demo towards the beginning of 2019. Frankly, the demo wasn't received very well, and a lot of feedback was returned to the development team at Marvelous Games. But interestingly enough, this team has been very forthright and open with the changes they've made, and it all seems to target almost exactly all the feedback we provided them. Some more interesting things about this game is that in addition to the single-player story mode, there's also a multi-system co-op in a Monster Hunter kind of style. You can take on missions or fight giant mechs with your friends or random players that also have the same game, and all get loot to upgrade your own arsenal. This is a feature that was somewhat flown under the radar, but could be really neat. Furthermore, after watching the wonderfully anime opening cutscene, the story actually seems kind of really awesome. Check that out if you get a chance. In summary, this may be a great game, but it's hard to really say. I'm hoping for another demo to show everyone what it offers, but beyond that, the game is $60 and isn't very likely to go on sale. Definitely wait for reviews unless you already know this is for you. This will probably be a Christmas present game for me. A week later is going to be an extremely interesting week, as on September 20th, we see the launch of the Switch Lite. It's hard to tell right now how well or poorly it'll sell, but it certainly is an interesting piece of hardware. However, right alongside it, we'll see the return of the classic Game Boy game Link's Awakening in glorious HD. This was one of the first Zelda games I ever played, and I really loved it. Not having played this release yet, though, I can't tell whether it will rekindle the magic of the original, but it truly is something special. It's an incredibly bizarre Zelda game and has a surprisingly large scope for what it looks like. It's hard to sell top-down Zelda to someone who doesn't care about top-down Zelda, but this is certainly one to keep an eye on and is just about the least likely here to see a price drop anytime soon. It'll be a full $60 and should be spectacular. On the other hand, on that same day we'll release another game that is a different kind of magical. Ni no Kuni Wrath of the White Witch launches on Switch for the slightly reduced $50 on September 20th and is an incredibly well-reviewed and beautiful cel-shaded RPG. The game is from Level 5, the team behind Yokai Watch, and has its own twist on the RPG combat system. It's somewhat turn-based, but not quite at the same time. The game was very well received when it first launched, so for an RPG fan, this should be really exciting. However, since Level 5 doesn't have a huge catalog on the Switch yet, it's hard to say how likely it'll go on sale and by how much. So I'd say prioritize Link's Awakening on the 20th, but give this one a solid look too. Then the last week of September has a truckload of interesting games that get progressively better throughout the week. Starting off the week is Contra Rogue Core. Honestly, I mentioned this one because it's a Contra game, but it looks kind of janky. It's an isometric 3D Contra game that looks pretty arcadey and not that great. It'll be $40 on September 24th, but maybe it happens to review well. But I doubt it. Maybe you wait for a sale on this one. That same day, Dead by Daylight launches also for $40. This is an asymmetrical multiplayer horror game. It has middling reviews on other platforms and may be outclassed already by Friday the 13th game that released recently. But Dead by Daylight does have more franchise representation, so check it out if you're into that. A bunch more games come out that week, but the most important are these last two, both on September 27th. Ori and the Blind Forest and Dragon Quest S Echoes of an Elusive Age Definitive Edition for Switch today. Buy it now. Long title. These have both already launched on other platforms, but will truly be at home here on Switch. Ori and the Blind Forest, as you may already know, is a game developed by Moon Studios, published by Microsoft Studios. The game is a masterclass in the Metroidvania style. That means meaningful power-ups, a progressively accessible world, great platforming, exploration, and combat. And it's beautiful to boot. It's only $20, and if you're into Metroidvanias at all and aren't swamped by all the other games already mentioned, you should pick this one up to slip in the cracks. And the last one is Dragon Quest Long Name. This game has a demo in the eShop right now and truly will be its definitive edition here on Switch. The addition of the 2D mode, extra story beats, chapters, more mounts, fully orchestrated soundtrack, and more, this game is the perfect representation of the classic JRPG in a modern age. It sticks to the basics, but does it exquisitely. Go get the demo to check it out and play around the first 10 hours, which then carries over. It's a full $60 and is definitely worth it, even if you have to get it late. And that's about it. All of the notable Switch games coming out in September of this year. And I'm sure more will get announced even as I'm editing this video, and then even more after the inevitable Nintendo Direct. There's just always too much to play. How are we meant to do this? But that's what I think. What do you think? Which of these games would you tell a grandma to play? Or if you're a grandma yourself, which of these seem fun? Let me know all of that and more in the comment section below, and we'll talk about some of those comments on this week's episode of Directly to You, our podcast that I'll finally be back on because I'm back in town. And while you're down there, like the video and subscribe to fanatixfour for more videos like this every Tuesday and Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. All right, that's it for me. See you next time.